I want to, let's go back to the cost of prediction error. And again, this is applying the EOQ model. And what we're interested in is the monetary outcome of what we predict the sales would be compared with the monetary outcome of what it turned out to be. So exactly like what happened with HTC when they got the prediction wrong. So the prediction, originally the EOQ was 13,000. I just want to bring your attention to page 805, page 805 of the textbook, where they do a calculation and actually do a comparison on page 805 that, maybe if it's not 13,000, maybe you predict it to be 12,000 or to be 14,000, and then you do the calculation of the EOQ. So here's the idea, all right? In hindsight, it turns out the demand is 13,000. And if that was the case, then you would have 1,000 units because that's the EOQ amount, right? Okay, good. It's possible that you can err by thinking that the sales will be much higher, or you can have an error by thinking that the sales were much lower. So maybe if it's 15,000, or here it's only 11,000, so the cost of prediction error is really what you're going to, if you predict it's 15,000, then your average carry-in is going to be much more. You know, you're going to be carrying something like 1,250. If you only predict only 11,000, then of course you're going to be carrying something like 900, but you're going to have stock out costs. You see what I mean? So your carrying costs are going to be low down, but stock out costs are going to go up. Here, you're going to have more than what you really need. You're going to have much more carrying costs, but your stock out costs are going to be zero. Why? Because you always have much more than what you need. All right? So that's the idea of trying to figure out what the cost of the prediction error is. Okay? And so basically, 1, 2, and 3, number 1, you compute the monetary outcome from the best action that could be taken, all right? So that the monetary outcome is, this is the best action here. And then you compare it with the best action based on incorrect predicted amount. So you actually compare it with, you incorrectly predicted here, so you compare it with this cost here. Or if you predicted here, then you compare it with the cost result here. And that's basically what step 1, 2, and 3 is doing. Okay? So have a look at page 805 for that actual calculation. Conflicts between the EOQ decision model and manager's performance evaluation. Okay, now I want you to think humanistically about this now. So far, we have talked about the EOQ. Then we have introduced some uncertainty. And then we introduced some, maybe we may get the prediction wrong, okay? And I told you about HTC, you know, their biggest worry is getting the forecast incorrect. Okay, their biggest challenge is getting the sales forecast correct. Because if you can do that, then everything is clockwork. Wow. Okay, so what we're doing now is thinking, no, hang on, what about, this is all fine and this is all fine, but what about the human? There's a human that works in your organisation. They're not just going to follow this like a robot, okay? Because I want you to think that if you're in charge of manufacturing the production, then all you care about is making a good quality product. You care about making good right? Am I right? But what if you're in charge of purchasing? What do you care about? Do you care about making a good quality product? No. You care about securing a good supply at a good price. You with me here, right? So managers in different divisions tend to have different incentives. And that's what this is starting to talk about here. All right? So let's read this out. What happens if the order quantity based on the EOQ decision differs from the order quantity managers would choose to make their own performance look best? So maybe you procurement managers, that is managers who are in charge of sourcing materials, all right, so they know the supply network and which suppliers to get from. One of their performance benchmarks is actually getting the materials at a good price. Now, everything else being equal, I mean negotiation skills and everything, how could I possibly get a better price if I'm negotiating with you? I have two options. I'll give you two scenarios. Which one is likely to give you a better price? If I order from you, like the sunglasses, I order from you just 6 times per year, and each time we're going to order 2,150. Or the other one is I order from you 13 times a year, and each time is going to be 1,000. Which one is going to likely give me a stronger negotiation position for getting a better price? The 6 times per year order or the 13 times? Hello? Which one will give me more power as the purchaser? If I order more frequently or less frequently? Sorry, if I order big orders or frequent small orders? Hands up for the big orders. Yes, of course. Suppliers like big orders. I told you that factories want big orders. They want 250 seats of the same colour. You with me here? They hate the fact that you want 6 different colours. All right? Because that means they have to do 6 different batches. All right? Lots of costs. They hate that. All right? They like it if you order 6 times a year, not 13 times a year. All right? So the purchasing managers' incentives, if everything else is being equal, they are inclined to want to not order so frequently. They are inclined to order less frequently, so therefore the manager's incentives may be will increase carrying costs and decrease the ordering costs. Because they're ordering less frequently, because each time they can negotiate a better price. The suppliers like big orders. Seriously, I talk to a lot of suppliers, and buyers tell me too. Suppliers hate it when you only want to order 1,000 units. Seriously? You've got to be kidding me! Go away, all right? That's the response you get, all right? They want 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. More. Okay? And they say, no, I just want 500. And then say, well, we've got a good price for you. Of course, the price is going to be higher. Right? So as a procurement manager, you are incentivized to actually try and have fewer orders and larger orders, because then that gives you a better negotiation power. But for the company, it actually increases the carrying costs. It increases the holding costs. And that's what we mean when we say there can be a conflict between the EOQ decision here, and the order quantity managers would choose to make their own performance look best. Okay? And that's what they're explaining here. Managers are interested in making their own performance look better will only focus on measures used to evaluate their performance. Conflicts will then arise between the EOQ model's optimal order quantity and the order quantity that managers regard as optimal. Okay, so keep in mind. All right, another story. How many of you have heard of? There's a major component manufacturer, electronics component manufacturer. What they do every year is they bring in a team from Accenture. Do you know Accenture? Okay, Accenture is a major consulting firm, spin-off from one of the other big fours. Anyway, they bring in Accenture in every year to get the production manager, the engineering manager, the purchasing manager, and the sales manager, all of them in the one table, and Accenture comes in, and their job is to get them all on the one page before they go and start talking to suppliers. That's how bad it is in organisations, where you've got these individual silos of functions where the managers, they have different concepts of what they want. Engineers, they want the perfect product. Production managers, they want a quality product. Sales managers, they want a new product with new features last week. It's always too late. And procurement, they want cheaper inputs, they want, and high volume. They all have different ideas about what they want. They're all incentivized differently. And it was so funny when I heard this story that Accenture comes in not to help negotiate with the suppliers, but to actually get all of these different managers to agree together before the company goes and talks to the suppliers. Wow. Is it really that bad? Yes, it is in some organisations. And how many of you know Shanghai Lucent Alcatel Bell? Because I interviewed them for a project going back many years ago. So I went to the Lucent headquarters. Lucent out of Canadian organisation, listed company, but they joint ventured with Shanghai, and they're creating telephone networks and all the wires and everything like that. And so they're in Shanghai. So I went there, and the manager I went to meet, he said, "Oh, you're very lucky we can get a meeting room because for the next 2 weeks, it's supplier meeting period." I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, we've got 2,000 suppliers, and all of those suppliers have to come into our headquarters for these 2 weeks for negotiations." Wow. This is big stuff. Like, a textbook doesn't talk about this enormity of supplier management. And so this whole idea of managers' performance evaluation, yes, it is a big deal. It is a real deal. If a company has to hire and pay big money to a consulting firm to come in to get these managers to behave, just behave, all right? Do the right thing by the company. Don't just think of your own self-interest. Wow, amazing. All right, so that brings us to my favourite, and that is just-in-time purchasing. And Learning Objective 4, describe why companies are using just-in-time purchasing. Page 807, okay? So page 807 of your textbook. So let me read this out with you, and you can underline keywords. Just-in-time purchasing is the purchase of materials or goods so that they are delivered just as needed for the production or sales. And so here you want to make a note afterwards. Therefore, sales forecasting is critical, all right? Make a note. Therefore, sales forecasts are critical. And I've already made a note earlier, right? Getting that forecast right is so critical, all right? I'll repeat that again. Next section. Just-in-time purchasing is not guided solely by the EOQ model, because that model only emphasises the trade-off between relevant carrying and ordering costs. In other words, EOQ is trading off ordering versus carrying. Under just-in-time, what we are doing is pushing ordering costs down to 0. Okay, now what is the missing word here? Have you figured that out yet? Not yet? You still figuring that out? Let's have a look. Ah, there it is. It's carrying costs. What we're trying to do now, we're not, EOQ is about trading off ordering versus holding, all right? We did the calculations and you'll do the optimized calculations. You need to know that for the exam. But now when we go just in time, we forget about ordering costs because in a just-in-time world, we are focusing on having minimum inventory. And so the idea is to try and reduce our carrying costs, but we want to avoid stock out, okay? We want to get this to a minimum and avoid stock out. That is what we're trying to do with just-in-time. And I think this is a key picture that should be in the textbook, but it's not in the textbook. I think this summarises the difference very, very nicely. Okay, so let's explain. Just-in-time reduces the cost of placing a purchase order because long-term purchasing agreements define price and quality terms. Individual purchase orders covered by these agreements require no additional negotiation regarding price or quantity. So I'm working with data from HTC at the moment on a project, and we actually got real data from them for 15 components. Do you know how many suppliers were supplying 15 components of this data? There were 78 suppliers. Like, on average, what's that? That's more than 5 suppliers per component. Like, wow. Amazing. All right? Companies have long-term purchasing agreements with these suppliers. Did you know, and I look at the data, I can show you the data on Thursday. I look at the data, actually I will present this to you on Thursday. I just want to show you some real live data. The datas are in the hundreds of millions. It's amazing the orders that they are pushing through on these suppliers. Like, it's not just 1,000 here, 10,000 here, all right? This efficient order quantity of, 13,000 and 1,000. No, when we go into component supplier management, we're talking about the hundreds of millions more. Wow. And then you multiply that by the number of orders during the year. They normally order at least once a month on these suppliers. And they have an agreement that we will order on average per month what we're doing. What they do is they normally have a 6-month agreement. Like here, a long-term purchasing agreement in the smartphone industry is 6 months. 6 months is a long term. Hello? All right? Like, for every one of you, 3 months is a long term, right? Like 3 months, start of the semester to the exam. Am I right? That's all you're thinking of. All right? That's long term. In the smartphone industry, it's only 6 months. In those 6 months, what they do is they promise the supply. In the next 6 months, we're going to order from you, say, 6 million units of components. Or 20 million, all right? And then in month 1, they call off. They call it a call off. They'll call off 900,000. In month 2, oh, we need a little bit more. We'll call off 1.2 million. Oh, next month, we'll call off 1 million. But the supplier is guaranteed to HTC that on average, over those 6 months, that HTC will demand 6 million units. Okay? But any month could be 10% higher or lower. That's normally how they do the agreements. So in other words, the manufacturers are pushing that uncertainty onto the suppliers in the short term. And that's how you can actually reduce the cost of placing a purchase order. All right? So they do it in long-term contracts. So the supplier is guaranteed that they'll get their order over 6 months, but every month may be a little bit different. companies are using electronic links to place purchase orders at a small fraction of traditional methods, like phone or mail. And so Eugene, my colleague, is teaching information systems, data analytics. He talks about ERP systems. Okay, he talks about electronic data interchange systems, EDI, which actually do automatic orders to the suppliers when a certain reorder point is triggered. That happens. Companies are using purchase order cards similar to consumer credit cards. So this is how they can reduce the costs of purchasing. So what are the relevant costs of just-in-time purchasing? Okay, so the relevant costs, okay. Time for a quiz, all right? What were the 6 costs? What were the 6 inventory carrying costs? What were the 6 big costs at the beginning of the chapter, chapter 20? What were the 6 costs? And are these the 6 costs here? Are they different or are they the same? Which one of these is not different from the others? Which one? Come on. Which one? 1 out of these 6 is different from the list of 6 in slide 1 or 2. Which one? Ah, my favourite, opportunity costs. Ah, that's awesome. I love it. All right. So what you noticed in your second or third PowerPoint slide, it said here are the 6 costs of carrying inventory. What was here was instead of opportunity costs, they had shrinkage costs. Is that right? Shrinkage. So now with just in time, we don't have shrinkage here. We have opportunity costs. That's what's relevant in just in time. Remember, because you're not trying to carry inventory at all. Okay? Just in time is all about, really, it's the big cost of just in time is that you cannot meet a demand that is out of your forecast, like what happened with HTC. And then they went to Sony to make up the shortfall. All right. Now we are in page 808. Page 808, is that right? Of your textbook. For those who have the textbook, all right, it's page 808, chapter 20. Notice exhibit 20.4. Sensitivity of EOQ supports movement towards just in time. What do we mean by sensitivity supports moving towards just in time? Well, let's have a look at that sunglass example again. Remember, there was 13,000 sunglasses. Am I right? 13,000 sunglasses. That is the planned demand each year. All right. So what is happening here? Let's have a look. There's 13,000, but the relevant ordering costs per purchase order, if we have only 200, 150, 100 down to 30, if the relevant carrying costs are 520, 7, 10 and 15, what we'll find over time that the actual total cost of ordering diminishes if we ran the carrying costs go up, but the actual purchasing is less here, so 228. What they're trying to say is that there's variations in the relevant ordering and carrying costs. In other words, sensitivity supports moving towards just in time. Like, we don't want to go to this edge of this table, we want to go closer to this edge over here. All right? So the whole idea is to try and reduce carrying costs, which is over here, but also minimise the probability that stock out will occur. So we don't care so much about ordering because we can automate ordering. We're assuming that we can automate ordering. We're assuming that we have agreements with suppliers that once we contract with them over the long term, that we don't have to renegotiate every month. We don't have to renegotiate, okay? So we're trying to what we're trying to do is, by automation, we're trying to, with just-in-time, through automation, all right, EDI and all those, and through long-term contracts, okay, we're trying to say, well, let's not worry about that. So what are we left with? All we're left with is this trade-off versus this trade-off, and that's why this comes down to here. And so we're really, see, carrying costs that matter in working out, okay, what is the optimal just-in-time calculation? Okay, because of automation, because of long-term contracts with suppliers, we don't have to worry so much about ordering costs. Okay, at the end of the day, it's all about carrying costs versus stock-out costs. So let's have a look. Exhibit 20.5, this calculation. I might be going too fast for myself here. All right, page 809. Okay, so we can look at the relevant cost per unit. The current purchasing policy is What we're doing now is we're comparing a traditional EOQ purchasing model with a just-in-time, what a just-in-time purchasing policy may look like. So let's have a look at the difference, and you can then underline the differences here. All right, so did this all print out okay on your PowerPoint slide? Okay, that's good. All right. Is this helpful? So you can see the exhibit in your PowerPoint? Okay, that's good. All right, so the purchasing cost, the relevant cost per unit is 14. Quantity per year, 13,000, so there's the total costs. All right. Now, under just-in-time, it may be the same, but what's the difference? What we're trying to do is the difference. There's not much difference in the ordering costs. There's not much difference in the opportunity carrying costs here. There's no difference here. Remember the 210 plus the 310 gave us $5.20? Here it's 210 plus $3, so just a little bit different here. Customer return cost, no different, all right? But what we're trying to do, where are we saving the money? Let's have a look. It may cost, our purchasing costs may go up per unit. Our ordering costs, let's have a look here, go up because we're ordering more frequently. Here, less frequently. Here, we're ordering 13 times per year. Here, we're ordering 130 times per year. Wow, 10 times more for the just-in-time approach, right? 130 times per year, wow. That's every 3 days. Wow. Not once a month here. So you can see that the costs of ordering go from 26 to 260. But now the opportunity carrying cost goes from 1,050 down to 105. We've cut our inventory from 500 down to 50, you see? So what and that's the biggest difference, right? See, 1,000 down to 105. And here, carrying costs, other carrying costs, gone from 1,550 down to 150. So the big differences are in the carrying costs that we have witnessed. The only thing that you need to be careful about is the stock out costs. So look, let's just summarize this here. All right, I just want to show you the three different types of costs are still present. All right, that is the ordering. All right, these three things are still relevant. All right, but here's the big question for you in this exercise. Have a look. Which of these is the least relevant? That's the question. Have a look. Have a look. Where are we getting our savings from? Let's have a look. How much are we saving by changing our ordering? It's costing us how much? 26 to 260. How much is that costing us? 200 and 234. Is that right? Difference. Am I right? 234? Yes or no? All right. So this factor here, all right, is 234. All right? Good. All right. All right. So let's have a look. Next one, carrying holding costs. Carrying costs here. Okay. So we've got, it's gone from 2,600 to 255. So what's the difference? So what's the difference? 2,245. Is that right? Yes or no? Hello? Is that what you... Use your smartphone if you can't calculate. 2,245. Is that right? Huh? All right. So 2,245. Okay. So what about stock out costs? Stock out costs 0 to 600. What's the difference? 600. Okay. So the big point that the textbook is making is, look, here are the three things, but once we go into this just-in-time mentality, here are the big trade-offs, like 2,245 versus 600, this 234 that you can, it becomes irrelevant. That's what it's saying, that these are the two trade-offs here, and that's why carrying costs here is really the big trade-off against stock-out costs. And it's not, we don't need to worry about ordering costs versus carrying because we have long-term contracting, we have automation, we don't need to worry about the benefits or the costs of ordering more frequently are not that prohibitive. What is prohibitive is this carrying cost. This is what we're saving. And we just need to manage the stock out costs. So that's the big trade-off here. It's not the trade-off between these two anymore. And that's the big shift from the first half of the textbook to we go to the second half of the textbook. Just-in-time purchasing, planning and control, and supply chain analysis. Really? They talk about supply chain? My favourite topic? Well, one of my favourite. Okay. Well, chapter 20 talks about it, so I better show you. Okay, so what's the big idea here? Supply chain describes... I want to finish up here. Because I think we can do this on Thursday. So just to give you a prelude onto Thursday, supply chain describes the flow of goods and services from the initial sources to delivery. Supply chain members share information, plan, coordinate. And so it's all about fewer stockouts, reduced manufacturing, fewer manufacturing orders, and lower inventory. So actually, when we start to talk about supply chain analysis, basically it's the application of activity-based costing to different suppliers. Remember when you did activity-based costing last semester? I know it was a long time ago. Pushpa told me and Mason told me that they did teach you activity-based costing. Am I right? Yeah, just nod your head if you're not sure. I know you were taught that. All right. So what was the big thing then? What was the big idea? The big idea of activity-based costing was to work out, what were the resources being consumed by the different products? Am I right? And the more cost bases we could use to get a finer allocation to the different products, the more accurate we can get information on them, right? To decide, do we continue with one product or another product, or do we drop a product, okay? So that was the whole idea, right? Here, it's the same thing. All you have to do is replace products with suppliers. And the big question is if we look at the total cost that supplier A is costing us versus supplier B, C, D, and E, and I can tell you, all these big companies like Apple and HTC and Samsung, they have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 multiple suppliers for every component. All right? So therefore, that's perfect for ABC. because now we can apply cost to the suppliers. Some suppliers may not like a 6-month contract. Maybe some say, no, we don't do that. Or if they do, they may charge you more. And so therefore that supplier is costing more than another supplier. You see, suddenly you'll find ways in which, the ordering cost of one supplier is cheaper than another one. Or one supplier gives you a discount, another one doesn't. Now suddenly the suppliers are different on multiple levels, and that's where we've got the activity-based costing concept. And that's basically what this is trying to show you, that supply chain members share information, plan, coordinate activities. And so they're saying that when we go to the next stage, it starts to talk about, well, all the suppliers are different. They're all different. And then there's a calculation where we could actually compare one supplier versus another one. And that's what we're going to do on Thursday. We're going to start to look at a very simple activity-based costing analysis applied to comparing one supplier versus another. And this is real based on my own experience in actually working with suppliers. Okay? Not every supplier is the same. One may have good quality, another one good price. One has this, one has that. And it's very hard to compare on one dimension. Always have to compare on multiple dimensions. And that's why it's perfect for activity-based costing concepts, principles. And so that's where chapter 20 is going. All right. So on Thursday we'll cover that. So just want to summarise again today. What we started off today was this notion of the EOQ model. We just want to compare ordering costs with carrying costs. Okay. And it's all about what is that efficient, the optimal order. And then we start to assume that, well, there's no uncertainty. But what if there is uncertainty? All right, then we need to do a normal distribution, and then we can start to calculate the carrying costs under the different scenarios, because stockouts will start to occur. And then we had to think about prediction models. What if we got the sales forecast wrong? What if we over-predict? What if we under-predict? What are the costs of getting the prediction wrong? And then we looked at the human factor. That is that procurement managers, they may want to order larger units than what the EOQ model says, because when they order larger volumes, they can go to a supplier and actually get a better price and better negotiation. And that makes their performance look better. Why? Because they get cheaper price. So that was the first half. And then I've just briefly started to introduce you to this notion of just in time. And that's where if we can have longer term contracts and automation, the ordering costs does not become a big deal anymore. What does become the big deal is the carrying costs and the stock out costs. Stock out becomes more frequent. Why? Because you're doing things just in time. So I want you to feel can you feel the theme that goes from a perfect world of EOQ, and then we say, oh, it's imperfect, and then we can make prediction errors, and then we've got the human factor. And then we go to the current world today, where if you talk to a lot of the modern manufacturing, a lot of it is just in time. And then actually that creates more uncertainty in some ways. What is that uncertainty? We'll talk about on Thursday, but part of that uncertainty is it increases the cost of stock out. And so now we are trading off carrying costs versus stock out costs.